No reira, he tangata o te tiriti, ko Aotearoa tōku kāinga, ko Dave rawa ko Mandy oku matua, ko Sally tōku wahine, and ko Ezra rawa ko Teia, remember their names, oku tamariki. So my name's Jack, and for those who I haven't met, really lovely to see your faces around today. I'm just going to pray. Actually, before I pray, congratulations to the City, Manchester City supporters in the, congratulations. Yeah, well done. Anyone who doesn't follow football, they won the treble this season, which I'm very disappointed about personally. Anyway, let's pray. Father, I just pray that you would open up your word. I thank you for this time we've had this morning already. I thank you've already been speaking. I thank you that I could almost sit down because you've already said it all this morning, to be honest. And I just thank you for your loving hand on us as a family. And we just pray, would you speak this morning? Amen. Awesome. So we're going to be continuing our story, digging into Isaiah. Today we're landing in 58. I've just been loving this series personally. My story is I've grown up in a Christian house since I was born, which has been awesome for me. It means I've been very familiar with lots of the stories in the Bible, even to the point where I've become over familiar with some of the stories in the Bible for points in my life, where I thought, okay, yeah, let's talk about David and Goliath again, or like, here we go again. Feel like you kind of you've completed it, right? But in the last few years, I've really been, I don't know, God's just opened up his word to me in a new way. And I've been just loving, it's such an amazing thing that we have, this Bible, this word of God, and so many depths and layers. And, you know, yes, when you scoot over the surface, you can get a little bit tired of hearing the same story over and over again. But when you really see what he is saying through his word and the story, the big picture story, I've just been loving this journey, particularly here as well, together as a church. So I'm going to give you my quick, we're going to be talking about the God of generosity really through this chapter. I'm going to give you my quick version of a summary so far of Isaiah, and I'm going to steal some pictures from the Bible Project. For anybody who hasn't got amongst the Bible Project, I'd encourage you to. So, first of all, Isaiah, big picture, it gives us this problem. And lots of this will look familiar as we go through, because this is a story repeated many times. So there's the problem. Israel, Jerusalem, they're following idols, they're oppressing the poor, they're basically choosing other things other than God. That's the problem. Then comes judgment. We hear about a coming judgment. The surrounding nations, Babylon, Assyria, God is going to raise them up to discipline Israel, to teach them. There's this judgment, and there's a refining fire, getting rid of the things that are not good. Even those nations who he's going to use to discipline Israel, those nations who are raised up also will be judged. We see this in chapters 24 to 27, and there's this picture of the lofty city, which is kind of summarizing the whole of humanity, the rebellious side of humanity. And Israel continues to rebel. As we carry on, we meet this servant, and we hear little bits of he'll be Emmanuel, God with us. He will bring hope, he'll bring deliverance, restore Israel. He'll be a light to the nations. There's also this surprising nature of the servant, which we've dug into over the last couple of weeks, where he's not just this glorious conqueror, but he is a servant who will be rejected. He'll be killed. He'll be gentle. He dies a sacrifice for the sins of the people, and this becomes clear as we go through. And then he lives again. He proclaims that people are made right with God. It's this turning point in the story. Then it points to us. Or at least in Isaiah, it points to Israel, his people. There's a choice. And this choice gets hammered home throughout Isaiah of, are you going to be humble, repent, become one of the servants, following the servant? Or are you going to be the wicked, reject God, and go in your own way? And there is this choice, and there's consequences of every choice. I'm trying to teach my own kids that, trying to teach the kids at school that as well. But there is consequences of choice. And the wicked, we see through Isaiah, they face God's justice. They're removed from the city. They get what they asked for in a way. And then the servants, they inherit the new creation. And we'll talk some more about that later. But, life, protection, spirit, joy, many of the things we've been singing about this morning. And then there's also the overflow to the nations. God would be a good God if he stopped with Israel. But there's overflow beyond Israel. As servants show practically their choice to trust God, helping the poor, releasing the oppressed, all of that stuff, they become a light to the nations. They're no longer looking to the nations to help them, which shows that actually their trust in God isn't there. God's not a big God. They need others. Instead of that, they've chosen follow God, trust God, and that's the light to the nations, and the nations see this is the God to follow. They're brought in. It's an open door to the city. And the nations are welcomed in. So today, we're going to see a lot of that come through. A lot of that's familiar, because really it's the gospel. Really it's the story told throughout the Bible. And Isaiah does it. And our chapter today actually will do it as well. In lots of your Bibles, Isaiah 58, it says at the top, true and false fasting. And so if you sort of saw that title, you might start to think we'll get a few rules about how to do fasting correctly, right? Are you allowed to drink water if it's a true fast? What about coffee? Does that count? What about a flat white? You top it up with the milk, make it a bit more filling. Maybe you melt a Moro bar into your coffee. You get away with that? I don't know. Blend up your roast dinners. We're not going to be digging into that stuff today, although I'm happy to talk about that afterwards. Don't have any answers. Really, we're going to be digging into this. This is Isaiah 58. It tells this story that we've just summarized in some powerful and practical ways. So, throughout Isaiah, we see contrasts. And we've sung about a lot of those contrasts this morning. Thanks so much, team, for leading us. That Joy of the House of the Lord song, we were the beggars, now we're royalty. We were the prisoners, now we're running free. I actually remember the lyrics this time. That's good. We've talked about these contrasts, and contrasts are all the way through Isaiah really strong. Gardens and wilderness, light, darkness, dryness, rivers, springs, fleeting nature of humans compared to the everlasting nature of God, trusting in God, doing it His way rather than doing it in our own way, high and low, blocks of wood or idols and God, contrasts all throughout. We also hear of this highway, the way of holiness in Isaiah, and I think we talked about that last week even. And this is the key, it's that pivot point of the whole story, is this way. Are the people going to walk in the way of holiness, or are they going to look to other things? And in Isaiah 58, we really see this contrast and this choice, and that's where we're going. So, here we go, chapter 1. Firstly, this old trumpet. Anybody heard a trumpet before? Really loud. You can't really practice it at home in your bedroom without waking anybody up. This needs to be heard, yeah? That's the point. This is important. God wants His people to hear this. So they look like, in this chapter, yet they seek me daily, delight to know my ways, as if they were a nation that did righteousness. They delight to draw near to God. So it looks like they're doing some of the right things here. It looks like the Israelites have got some of it right. They want to follow God. They're, on the outside at least, looking like they're a nation that did righteousness. However, God wants to make it clear here that there is work to be done. There's still transgressions. Reveal to the house of Jacob their sins. This is the beautiful nature of walking in the way, is that he's never finished with us and he keeps discipling us, changing us, teaching us. Verse 3, why have we fasted and you see it not? Why have we humbled ourselves and you take no knowledge of it? They're angry at God that he hasn't accepted their offering. We've done the things. Why haven't you heard us? You're kind of getting those Cain vibes. Do you remember Cain and Abel? He got a bit angry, a bit miffed when God didn't accept his. We've been there, right? I think we can sometimes be a bit transactional in our faith, And certainly my experience of fasting, I've got a long way to go on that. But I've often approached it, well, I've got a thing that I need God to sort, so I'm going to fast about it, and then he'll sort it. And then if he doesn't sort it, you're like, well, that was a waste of time, right? I think that's where they're at here. Yeah, but then in the day of your fast, you seek your own pleasure, oppress all your workers. You fast only to quarrel and to fight, to hit with a wicked fist. There's this appearance of humility. Bow down your head like a reed. Sackcloth, ashes, all of that. I've never gone there, but I don't know if that works too. There's this appearance of humility. But on the same day, their actions betray their hearts. They oppress others, they look after their own interests, they're wicked. Instead of following the way of the servant, being gentle, humble, lifting up others, they put on that appearance and then align themselves with the wicked. I'm sure we can identify with this at times. I certainly can. It's like there's a separation in their lives. A month or two ago, I think we heard Gary speak on that really, really powerfully. And it hits close to home because so many of us, you walk into church, for example, this morning, and you walk in the way of holiness for an hour or two. And then we can walk out the door and, suddenly you're, yelling at your kids or talking bad about someone at work the next day or whatever it might be. This is reality for many of us at many times, isn't it? The beautiful thing is there is grace, and we're gonna carry on going that way as well. But there is also this trumpet call here to walk in the way, and we hold both grace and this call. As we go on, this whole chapter is not a list of things that people need to get sorted. Otherwise, they're going to be punished. It's not that. It's not even explicitly a list of things that prove you're a Christian either, that prove you're following God. If we just focus on the things, list out, okay, so it says do this, do this, do this. If we focus on those things, we would actually miss the point completely. We're then trusting in ourselves. We're trusting in those things to save us. And it's a list of tick the box and good as gold. The description of the whole point here is to focus on God, and then he transforms. He's the one. And Esther, where are you, Esther? That word you brought this morning was so pinpoint on what we're talking about here. Is Christ is the light in the middle, and as we align ourselves with him and get close to him, he changes us. He transforms us to act in these ways. Spoiler alert, that's where we're going. So this is not a list of things to do to be saved. This is a list of things that those who truly know they are saved by grace alone will do. So we now get to that choice of response. So we've talked about the problem, now the choice of response. What does walking in the way look like? Here's the contrast. Loose the bonds of wickedness, undo the straps of the yoke, let the oppressed go free, break every yoke. So undo all of those things that you've screwed up. Go and apologize. Go and set things right. Release the oppressed. Share your bread with the hungry. Let the homeless pour into your house. Cover the naked. This is responding to those needs around you. And man, the world needs, doesn't it? There's a lot of need around. There's a lot of need around in our city in Porirua. Take away the yoke from your midst, the pointing of the finger, the speaking wickedness, all those structures in place, the lowering of status of other people. Remove that from amongst you. It's towards the end of the chapter. If you turn back your foot from the Sabbath, from doing your pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight and the holy day of the Lord honorable. If you honor it, not going your own ways or seeking your own pleasure or talking idly. You know, Sabbath we sort of think we tick the box if we do the Sunday thing, go to church, I think. Certainly that's how I've read the Sabbath in many, many times in my life. It's just another aspect of worship, isn't it? It's another way of walking in the way. It's another way of dedicating your life to Jesus and trusting in Him. It's like fasting in many ways. It's a life of living in the way, these rhythms of grace that we sung about this morning. So we see that God is hitting much deeper than simply a list of rules to follow to ensure your fasting is done properly. He's speaking to our hearts here. He's speaking to us in these very practical ways as well. At the center of it, I think I just want to pull out generosity and trusting in God. For me, I think these two things are really linked. And I'll get to this in just a second. Throughout the Bible, time and time again, we do see the same story retold. And you know, we see the big picture and we zoom in and we see that story again and understand it more. And we zoom in to just 58 and we see the same story retold in really practical ways. And we've seen this choice time and time again. Are people going to trust God? Are they going to wait on Him to do His own timing, trusting in His goodness, being children of a faithful Father? Or are they going to take matters into their own hands? Are they going to take the fruit from the tree? Are they going to look to idols or ally themselves with other nations, or are they going to look to God? This question comes through time and time again, and we face that same question. And I think generosity is really hard when you're trusting yourself, when you're looking to grab and take and get what maybe God intended, even what He intended for you, but you're trying to grab it in your own way, in your own timing. Generosity is hard when your mind is set that way. What if I miss out? What if I'm overlooked? If I champion this person, will I miss out? Those kinds of things. God knows that generosity starts flowing when our trust is in Him. When we realize that actually He's the God who is generous. And that's what comes through. You know, you read the gospel story, there's no other way to read it. God is generous beyond measure. He's given us everything. The very breath we breathe, the life we live, everything good comes from Him. Yeah, He's good, eh? And so generous, beyond measure. And as we realize that, we actually can walk in generosity some more. We can trust Him to provide everything we need. I think it's a real cycle. As a church, we want to be more generous, for sure. We've said that many times in the past and said it as kind of, here's where we want to be, here's what we want to do. And Sally and I, we've experienced huge generosity from people in this room. I mean, even the car we drive, it's the nicest car we've ever owned, and we got it completely free, given to us by somebody in this church, which I still can't quite believe. But you know, we've experienced generosity through this body. But it's something we want to keep growing in, hey. Generosity within ourselves, generosity to the world. So the way that we grow in this is by reestablishing this healthy perspective, that everything we have comes from Him, down to the very breath we breathe. He will provide, he will sustain, and often he will do it through his people, through his body, us, his hands and feet. Jesus' take on this, he's always got a good take on things, Matthew 22, a really famous verse. It's good because he summarizes the whole of the Bible into two things. So we like a good summary. I do anyway. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. So put your everything into loving God. Give him all. That's the first one. Then the second is like it. And I don't think it's saying the second is like it just because it starts with the same three words or whatever. Like, oh, it's about love, so it's kind of like it. I think there's a stronger link there. Loving the Lord your God should have practical outworkings. Trusting in him, giving him your whole heart, soul, and mind should result in loving your neighbor as yourself. These two things are linked. How do you show your love to God? You show it by showing love to others in other ways, but it's got to be there. It's not just a general warm, fuzzy feeling of love to some idea, metaphor of neighbor either, right? It's a practical, helping love of your neighbor, like who lives next to you, who's around you, who's in the office with you, who's on the train with you, whatever it might be. It's not this nice concept of love. It's a practical who's around you responding to the need, like we see in our verses today. So now we get to the consequences and the overflow. I'm just checking my time. I'm doing okay. So I've highlighted these, in amongst these two bits, and this is the consequences or the overflow of that choice to follow in the way, that choice to align yourself with the servant. When you do that, here's what comes. So your light will break forth like the dawn. There'll be healing, righteousness will go before you. The glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. So there's this right relationship with God. There's this right relationship with those around you. As we align ourselves with him, there's protection. No longer need of the city walls to protect you, or the idols or the allies with other nations. There's protection. It's like that. I don't know what movie it's from, but is it Indiana Jones, where he walks out and the thing pops out in front of, Indiana Jones? It's almost like that. As we ally ourselves with him, as we trust him, he provides and he gives protection. He's our rear guard. You should call the Lord, and the Lord will answer. Oh, thanks. That was beautiful. He's well trained. As you call, the Lord will answer. The Lord will guide you continually, satisfy your desire in scorched places, and make your bones strong. I'll go with this. Make your bones strong, and you shall be like ancient ruins shall be rebuilt, and you shall raise up the foundations of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to dwell in. It's good stuff. Is this working or no? It's not. Then you should take delight in the Lord, and I will make you ride on the heights of the earth. I will feed you with the heritage of Jacob, your father, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. We've touched on this verse here, the spring of water will be like a watered garden. When I talked to Sally about the fact that I was preaching, and I said, oh, it's a great verse. And she was like, is there water in it? I was like, yes. So my thing at the moment is like, I've just been digging into the imagery of water throughout the Bible, and it's awesome. it's been a really cool journey for me. But yeah, she was like, oh, here we go again. So yes, I'm going to talk about water for a little moment. Go read the Bible and just look out for water, and you'll have fun. In Genesis, we see this. I'll give you an overview now. In Genesis, we see this beautiful picture of the Garden of Eden, the garden on a mountain, river flowing from it. The river splits into four, and it's the source of life for all of the main cities and people groups that are talked about throughout the Bible story, or in the Torah at least. It's life for all people. In Ezekiel 47, and we at church camp, Phil talked about this really powerfully. And in Ezekiel, there's this river described flowing from the temple. It gets deeper and deeper to the point where he can't cross it. The water flows into the Dead Sea, bringing life to even that most dead place, the epitome of death and lack of life. Then in Psalm 1, my favorite psalm at many points of my life, talks about blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked or stand in the way that sinners take it. There's that contrast again, that choice. Or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. In Revelation 22, there's many in between these kind of four that I've drawn out, but just to give a bit of a summary, the river is flowing from God's throne with a tree of life either side of it, with fruit and healing for the nations. It's this amazing picture. And then here, amazingly, God tells his people, you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters do not fail. You know, we find our life in that living water, the Spirit of God, and we bear fruit when we are planted there. And fruits of the Spirit, you know, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. That's from Galatians 5. This is the way. Not going down the Mandalorian part, but, you know, it's a good show too. Go watch that too. But this is the way. And I'd encourage you, meditate on those words. Meditate on those fruits of the Spirit. What do they look like practically in your position, in the job that you've been put in, or the kids that you've been asked to raise, or the school that you are a student in? That, man, schools need this. Schools need the fruits of the Spirit. So meditate on those words. I could give you lots of sort of practical, go and do this, go and do that, go and do that. That's not the point. Go and meditate on those words. What do they look like in a practical sense for you? But then this verse, you'll be like a watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters do not fail. It doesn't stop at you'll be like a watered garden, right? We're not just the garden who is watered and fruit springs out and we draw our life from him, but also like a spring of water whose waters do not fail. We have that privilege to be that spring of water to others as well. When we receive his life, it's not just so that we can sort of be healthy and be a nice tree. It's so that we can then also be a spring of water, a spring of life to those around. Even life in the Dead Sea, us in Christ, Christ in us. People can experience the life and love of God through us. It's mind-blowing, it's humbling, and it's true. As we live like this, the nations are fed, watered, and changed too. I think that's what I wanted to put up. It goes beyond just Israel. In Isaiah chapter 19, going back, there's this moment which, as I read through it, was kind of jarring to me in the context, where Egypt and Assyria, they're kind of these big powers they're set up as the bad guys, right, in the story that is presented in the Bible. And in chapter 19 of Isaiah, they're put alongside Israel. God says, "Blessed be Egypt, my people, and Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel, my inheritance." You know, even these nations who are established as the opposition to God's people, those nations who are kind of villainized in this story as summarizing evil, right? They're the bad guys. They're drawn into this glorious picture of the people of God. God doesn't stop with pouring out grace on just the Israelites. This is how we've been grafted into the story too, right? Through the grace of God that doesn't pay attention to, societal lines or cultural lines or, status lines or whatever political lines or whatever you want to draw up that we humans seem to like to do to us and them, kind of put those lines in. God's grace, His generosity, it pours over all of those lines. And we're called to do the same. Simon, do you mind coming up and we might do that Rhythms of Grace song? If that's all right. So our call this morning is a big one. It's not just go and fast and don't put the Moro bar in. You can have the coffee, I reckon. It's not that. Our call is much more deep than that. The call is not even just to go and be more generous, right? The call is not even just to go and give a certain amount of money, or you just make sure you prioritize other people. It's not to do that stuff. That's not our call even this morning, although it is. But the primary call, and we've heard it again and again this morning, is to plant yourself by the streams of living water. Plant yourself in God. Do we understand? To put your trust in God and nowhere else. Abide in me, Jesus says, and when we do, our lives will be those that truly honor Him. That primary call to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. God, we want to plant ourselves by you today. We want to plant our feet, let our roots go deep next to the streams of living water. Help us to be found in those rhythms of grace, Lord. And God, as we do that, in the very same breath, we thank you that you produce fruit in us. Fruit of love, joy, peace, patience, self-control, all of those things that change the world, Lord. God, help us not only to be planted in you, but also to love our neighbor as ourselves, to be springs of living water to those around us in the places you've put us, God. Keep using us as your people, and God, we put you first, Lord. In Jesus' name.